Hello, I am Dan Stapleton.
And I'm TJ Hafer.
And TJ, what is this game you've reviewed for us?
This is the Ardennes Assault expansion for Company of Heroes 2. It's based on the Battle of the Bulge in the Western Front, so Americans versus Germans. Kind of a different German army from what you saw in the Soviet campaign. You've got these three companies that you kind of move around the map to capture territory. There's some that are like actual historical engagements that happened in the Battle of the Bulge, and other ones like this, which are just more of like a standard skirmish match like you'd be used to in Company of Heroes.
And you're telling me that this game is better than the Company of Heroes 2 campaign and bumping up against the original Company of Heroes campaign, which is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the way that the map is set up is really clever. You have a lot of upgrades you can do to your different companies. I'm adding on some fuel cost reductions for my strafing run here on my airborne guys because I'm about to send them into battle. I've also got mechanized infantry, which are kind of like the fast attack, and then the support company, which are more like a defensive army.
And this isn't really the first time Relic has done this kind of meta map dynamic campaign thing. They did something very similar in the Dark Crusade campaign for Warhammer 40,000: Dawn of War.
Right. Yeah. The one main difference is if you saw, like, there are three little pips here that give them upgrades for the Germans on this space. If I don't cut off their line of retreat, these little icons can basically retreat and fall back to another space on the map and unlock new upgrades, these grayed out ones for whatever forces are sitting at the place they fell back to.
That's
so
cool.
If you try to just blitz all in one direction, you'll end up with like this uber panzer army bunched up on one square that's going to be pretty hard to get rid of. So this map right here, I have to capture some basically broken down vehicles. The objectives on these skirmish maps are actually randomized.
So it does shake up when you replay it, and that's actually kind of important because you may have to replay it.
Right. Yeah. So if you see right here, this is my company strength. Whenever I lose a squad in battle, as long as I get one guy back to base with the retreat button, it's fine. But if I lose a squad, I actually lose health from my company strength, and that carries over from mission to mission. And actually, if you lose all of your company strength on all three of your companies, you just have to start over. And it's auto-save only, and there's only one save file, so it's
kind of like a roguelike RTS.
Right, yeah, like that's a pretty good way to describe it, actually. And it was a little bit annoying the first time I had to restart because I didn't really understand that was going to happen. I wasn't really playing poorly, I was just kind of playing suboptimally, and it was just... It felt very punishing at first to have to start from square one.
Yeah, when you come back to an RTS after a year or so of it's been about a year and a half since Company Heroes 2 came out.
Yeah, it has been a while.
You come back to an RTS, you're a little bit rusty. Maybe you lose a couple engagements, and all of a sudden you're maybe having to restart this 10 or 15 hour campaign.
Right. I was about 9 hours in, and I just kind of had to scrap that file, especially compared to the Soviet campaign that doesn't really punish you for sending infantrymen to their deaths. It's kind of what you're supposed to do most of the time with all those conscripts. This is very much more realistic, very much more about the human cost of war in a different way. You have like voiced commanders for each company that'll give you sort of a recap on their thoughts about the battle, and if you did really well and preserved a lot of your troops, they'll be happy about that, obviously, whereas if you lost a lot of people, they'll sort of lament the horrors of war.
And Company of Heroes has always been really good about like kind of making your soldiers feel human.
Right.
They're really well animated. They've got good voice acting. Like they scream in pain when they're hit. They're smart enough to take cover on their own. They don't just stand there and get shot like somebody in StarCraft.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's adding that weight of not being able to easily replace people, and giving them even those unique commander voices, like that's pretty significant, I think.
Yeah, it really nicely integrates kind of the all the way down from the tactical level up to the strategic campaign level, it adds sort of a persistent personality to it all, because you're trying to preserve your troops. Your commanders are very receptive to how well you're doing at that, and on the strategic level, obviously, you're making decisions in terms of, okay, do I want to like deploy behind enemy lines where I might take some attrition to my manpower, but I can cut off the reinforcements from being able to join up with their friends over here. So it's a really interesting, textured sort of campaign experience.
But overall, you thought the manpower system was a little bit too unforgiving for your taste?
Yeah, I felt like if it had been optional, that would have been one thing. But the fact that it's mandatory to only have one save file, you can sort of restart a mission if you exit the game without saving before the end.
That's kind of cheating.
Or if you copy your save file to a different directory, there's always that sort of like old school save scumming that you can do. And the fact that it doesn't really tell you ahead of time that you have to restart the campaign if you run out of manpower. The combination of those things felt like a little bit too extreme to be the default. I wouldn't have minded that as a mode.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, like I love playing Iron Man in like XCOM, but I kind of do want to be able to do a non-Iron Man game.
Right. Especially, if people just want to kind of play on the easier difficulty for fun, which a lot of people do with RTS. Not everybody has like the uber commander skills to, make it through a campaign like this, without having to restart it at least once. I didn't even, and I'm a pretty avid RTS player, and I had to restart the campaign once, it's not awful, because the skirmish maps do have like randomized objectives that change every time, but it's still kind of annoying that I put 9 hours into a campaign and had to end up starting over. So.
But I mean, like you were saying, there is that random element to the campaign that makes it a little bit less painful to completely replay from the beginning, because it's not doing the exact same thing. But I guess you're saying there are historical battles that are the same every time?
Yeah. The historical battles are just based on different engagements that happened at the Battle of the Bulge in real life, IRL history, and those stay the same. You can go at them in a different order. You can go at them with a different company than the one you used last time, and also based on how many reinforcements they have, the objectives might be slightly different. And you can see they captured one of the tanks here. They're trying to crawl it back to their base before I can stop them. So let's see if we can get this half track over there in time.
Let's secure that ground. Repair detail on me. We're on it.
They don't start out in great shape, these tanks. When you first pick them up on the map, luckily I think these rear echelon guys can patch it up a little bit.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of like original Homeworld, another Relic game, one of my all-time favorite RTSs, where they, your force is persistent throughout the campaign. If you lose a ship in one mission, it's gone the next, or if you carry one over to the next, you still have it. But like when you recover those tanks, do you get to take those tanks to the next mission?
No, unfortunately, that was one of the weirder things about this specific mission, is that you can lose company strength from losing the tanks that you just picked up, but they don't add company strength if they survive through the mission. So that is a little bit awkward.
It's a little bit of a cheat.
Yeah.
But so you were saying that the weather doesn't really play as much of a role here as it does in Company of Heroes 2.
No, in the original Soviet campaign, you had to like keep guys close to fire, or they had to have like a special ability that made them weather resistant, or else they would just start taking damage randomly. You could still, I don't know if there's a river on this map. You can still blow up like frozen rivers and stuff. Yeah, but they don't really.
There are no storms.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to think about the weather in terms of, are my guys going to survive this? You do need to think about, if you're the Germans, am I going to survive this strafing run? And the answer was no in this case. But yeah, so yeah, it's not as focused on sort of like the bleak brutality of the Eastern Front. It's a little bit more like the original Allied campaign in Company of Heroes, where it's heroic, realistic, not like, oh yeah, Americans win every battle and we're so awesome. Like there's still moments of regret and sorrow, but it's not quite the sordid affair that the Soviet campaign was.
Less
So.
shooting your own men.
Yeah, definitely less of that. At least not on purpose. So.
But so, despite all that, despite your reservations with the manpower system and the single save, you still think this is a great game.
Yeah, it really is. Like we were talking about earlier, I think it's better than the original Company of Heroes 2 campaign, and I think it's one of the better, in terms of the meta map, it's one of the better RTS campaigns that's come out in a while. Really, just with how the reinforcement system works, the upgrades that are available to your troops, the fact that all of the companies sort of play differently, and you can send any company to any part of the map at any time, which will drastically change the flow of the campaign and things like that. I really enjoyed it.
And it is a standalone expansion, so you don't even need to own Company of Heroes or Company of Heroes 2 to play it.
Right. Then they released like these armies for multiplayer as like a separate package, but if you just want to play the single player, it is standalone, yeah.
But you're playing as the Americans the entire time in this.
Yeah. It's the Americans, and you're against the Germans, but it is a different German army than what you faced in the Soviet campaign, because they're like the Western Oberkommando German armies. They have some different units too. It won't just be the same Germans you're used to fighting if you played the original Company of Heroes 2 campaign.
Well, anyway, you're giving this an 8.2, which is great.
Yes.
I think this is an outstanding game, and I'm actually really looking forward to playing this. Because,
yeah?
like you, I was a little bit disappointed by the Company of Heroes 2 campaign, but love the first one. And if this one is up to that standard, I am really excited about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Well, thank you again for coming in and showing this off, TJ.
Yeah, no problem.
And for all things Company of Heroes 2, keep it on IGN.